And welcome into a new edition of Main Event Sports TV Live. It is going down here, 1201 South 1st Street. The beautiful, wonderful, amazing Old Louisville Pizza Pub, Haven.
It's good to be back in the saddle.
It is good to be back in the middle of the madness.
I'm telling you, man, the madness is real. The South region is real. So just so you know, in this segment, this is all NCAA tournament.
So hold on. You said the South Regional. So you know, I know they talked about all the powerhouse. Talked about Virginia. They talked about Kentucky.
Arizona.
They talked about Arizona.
But
they talked about Cincinnati.
Who did we forget to talk about?
Who?
Loyola of Chicago.
Loyola of Chicago, the Ramblers.
What's a Rambler?
Rambling to the Final Four. Sister Jean, it went down.
You know what? The only thing I could think of, every time I see Sister Jean, every time I see the Ramblers, knowing they're from Chicago, the only thing I think about are the Blues Brothers, Jake and Elwood. I can picture Jake and El was like, I got some cigarettes. It's dark. We got half a tank of gas. We got 300 miles to go. We can do it.
Hey, but you know what, though?
They did it.
What's crazy, though, is that, like, every team in Chicago sucks. Like the Chicago Blackhawks literally did not make the playoffs for the first time in like 30 years. The Bears are terrible.
Bulls are suspect.
The Bulls are horrible. So DePaul basketball is horrible.
DePaul, they still play basketball?
Right, exactly. So like literally the whole city has wrapped their arms around Loyola Chicago. And I don't even know how many Chicago people even knew that Loyola existed before this run.
A lot. I'm going to tell you why. Because they have open gym. So the brothers would use the open gym and hoop hard. That's how we know about Loyola, Chicago. But this is you talk about Cinderella season.
Yeah.
This is like Cinderella, Snow White, all the Disney princesses rolled up into one, into like the one big moment. Nobody thought these guys were going to do it. Nobody gave these guys a chance. I didn't give them a chance. I thought, man, Kentucky has laid out for them.
I mean, that was the talk, right? Is that Kentucky had basically a walk to the Final Four. I mean, Kentucky was literally only going to have to play one single-digit seed to make the run to the Final Four. Okay? They took care of business with Davidson in the first round. They took care of business in the second round with Buffalo. Came into the third round versus a 9-seed Kansas State.
A team they have never lost to. And Calipari, while at Kentucky.
And their best player was hurt.
Yeah, and Calipari, while at Kentucky, is undefeated in the Sweet 16. Undefeated in the Sweet 16.
So what happened? What happened, Haven?
They lost. Obviously. I mean, but here's the thing. Kansas State played an excellent game.
No. I'm not even going to let you tell that lie.
Let me finish.
That game was horrible.
Let me finish. Okay, look, you cut me off. Okay, let me finish. Kansas State shot well above their average from the three-point range. It was raining threes all night long. Kentucky played a horrible game.
Yeah.
I was surprised the game was as close as it was.
Hey,
I'm down to the end of the game because Kentucky missed almost all their free throws. Their offense was inept. Their defense was even worse. The refs called like every ticky-tacky foul you could possibly call on both sides, on Kansas State and Kentucky. The whistles were flying.
It was horrible. Like, Kentucky was on track to shoot 50 free throws in the game. Like, it was very ugly, a ton of fouls. Literally, if there was no local interest in that game, I would have turned it off because it was horrible. I mean, literally, just fouls, very disjointed play, stoppages throughout.
Rhythm when the refs called literally like
P.J. Washington fouled out like half of Kansas State's team, and then everybody else had 4 fouls.
I'm like, everybody had 4. I'm like, everybody had at least 3 fouls. Like, everybody for Kansas State, everybody for Kentucky had at least 3 fouls before halftime. Yeah. Literally, and I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating. Literally before halftime, everybody had like 3 fouls. Like, both Kentucky's guards were in the foul trouble with like 9 minutes to go in the first half.
Yeah, 24 fouls called in the first half, and I believe by the end of the game, they were at 48 for the game. 48 foul calls. So,
they called everything.
And even with that, P.J. Washington goes 8 of 20 from the free throw line, well below his season average of 67%. If he shoots his season average, Haven,
Kentucky wins by
Kentucky's
7.
in the Final Four.
Easily in the Final Four.
Yeah, because
this became hack and shack at the end.
I love Sister Jean, but Loyola was not going to beat Kentucky. Like, Kansas State had the horses to be able to do it because they're a defensive-minded team. They're big, they're physical, so they were able to stand up to it. I don't see Loyola beating Kentucky.
I would never sell out the Ramblers. Ever sell out the Ramblers. Because nobody thought they'd make it this far. Nobody thought they would make it this far. And their best game was in the Elite Eight. Their biggest victory was in the Elite Eight, and they led from whistle to whistle.
No doubt.
Dominated that game, and nobody even thought they would dominate that game like they did.
Yeah, so, I mean, after you had so many upsets. You had UMBC, of course, knock off Virginia in the very first round. The first time you had a 16 beat a 1 seed. You had Cincinnati, go down to defeat. You had Miami lose to the Ramblers on the last second shot. This was absolutely the bracket of the upsets. Buffalo knocking off Arizona. So some kind of way we got to the Ramblers out of the South seed. Now, the rest of the tournament was, I'll say, closer to what you expected to be outside of, Florida State.
I mean, it was
ending up in the Elite Eight.
I mean, it was just closer in the Final Four that the big name teams made it to the Final Four. That's when it was closer. But before then, it was still a chaos of pandemonium. I mean, whoever thought Clemson would make it this far?
Yeah.
Clemson almost erased a 22-point deficit
to
Duke. To Duke.
Yeah.
Craziness.
No.
Whoever thought FSU, the team Louisville beat twice, would make it to Elite Eight?
Nobody
saw that.
No, it was crazy. I mean, but this was kind of indicative of the whole season, is that you had a lot of upsets. There wasn't a lot of difference between the best teams and the worst teams, and we saw that play out on the court. Nobody could have predicted what happened in the NCAA tournament, and I think it lived up to it. But at the end of the day, I think that things turned out pretty close to, when you get to the Final Four round, the chalk usually comes through. And, I said Michigan would make it. They are my choice to win it all. That they were the team that I picked from the beginning. They made it to the Final Four. They made it through that group.
Are they still your team to win it all? Because Villanova's looking like they're ready for another title.
Yeah, Villanova looks good. I mean, Villanova, the way they played, I will say that I will put the asterisk by them. Both of the teams that did not make the Final Four, Virginia and Purdue, both had major injuries before the tournament started. Purdue lost their big man in the very first game. They lost Isaac Haas to a fractured elbow. And I really think that Purdue would have come out of that region had Haas not have gotten hurt. But Nova took advantage. Nova made their run. They beat Texas Tech, a Texas Tech team that was a lot better than what I thought they were. But Villanova looked good. They made the Final Four. Michigan came out of the West, as we talked about. And then the Midwest, I had what looked like it was going to be pretty much the de facto national championship game. Kansas versus Duke. Two heavyweights, mano a mano, throwing haymakers.
That was a game. Those guys
went overtime.
Those guys played it tough. And like our senior writer Mark Bacon put it, thank the heavens above that Kansas beat Duke. Because Lord, I did not want to see Duke in the final. I do not like Duke. I've never liked Duke. I don't like Kansas either, but I like Duke worse than I like Kansas. I mean, see Kansas win.
It was interesting to watch it because Duke had all the top-end talent, but Kansas had the veterans. And the thing that we've seen with a lot of these teams that have a lot of one-and-dones, like Kentucky and like Duke, is that the teams that have an a very large amount of one-and-dones usually end up struggling to a team that has experience, i.e. Wisconsin knocking off Kentucky in the Final Four. And I think we saw that with Duke. Kansas had just enough experienced leadership. Svi Mikhailuk, had a great game, knocked down some big shots. Malik Newman, the transfer from Mississippi State, had a huge game. He's playing possessed basketball.
Now that game was like they challenged every shot.
Yeah.
If you was going in the paint, it was going to be challenged by somebody.
That looked like a Final Four game.
It did, like every layup, every rebound, every three-pointer, everything in that game was contested. Nobody got any really good open looks because everybody was trying to block everything. It was a great game. That was probably the best game so far of the tournament. I think it's probably the best play.
I mean, it looked like to me
tournament.
the national champion was going to come out of that game. As well as those two teams played, I personally think, even though I picked Michigan to win it all, I mean, Kansas is playing on a different level. Like, everybody mid-January left Kansas for dead. Everybody thought, this is going to be the first time that they don't win the Big 12. It looks like all these other teams on the come up. Trae Young is balling in Oklahoma, West Virginia.
Okay, stop. I'm going to stop right there. We both knew that Oklahoma was not going to do anything.
I mean, I don't know. Trae Young, through the first, until January, Trae Young and Oklahoma was like the story.
It takes more than what? No, that was ESPN's story was Trae Young. Get it right. That was ESPN's story, Trae Young.
It was very Lamar Jackson-esque. When with Lamar Jackson as a sophomore, that first half of the year, Jackson would set the world on fire. But then once Marshall kind of gave everybody the game plan for how to beat him,
it was over.
And that's basically what happened with Trae Young. Like, literally, I think they were playing Iowa State. And Iowa State devised a game plan around just stopping Trae Young and basically saying, let the rest of these bums beat us. And the rest of the bums couldn't beat him.
And that's all people.
And that was all she wrote.
All people knew was that blueprint. Once that blueprint was laid out, I was like, gotcha.
So, of course, Kansas went ahead. They made it there. It'll be the Jayhawks versus the Villanova Wildcats in the late game. The early game, the Fighting Sister Jeans of Loyola Chicago are going to be taking on Michigan. So, Haven, what do you see happening? What do you think is going to happen? Who will be playing for it all, and who's going to end up cutting down the nets?
God, I hate to say this. I don't like Kansas. But I really don't. I mean, if you look at the brackets, I really don't see a team that has the level of talent, the experience that has been there outside of Kansas, really.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Villanova. They're playing very well. They're playing probably at the top of their game right now. But I'm not sure if they have the horses to compete. You look at Michigan. Once again, they play great at the end of the season.
They haven't lost a game since, I think, mid-January.
They have, like you said.
Hot. They are hot.
They're hot. But, a couple of these games in the tournament, they look kind of
iffy.
They look kind of suspect. They look very suspect. But they made it.
Yeah.
But I just don't think, once again, they have the depth. They have the top-end talent to compete with a Kansas. It seems like right now, like you said, whoever won between Duke and Kansas is going to be it. Loyola Chicago. Honestly, I don't know a thing about these dudes. I really don't. Because these guys, they just find a way to win. They just find a way.
They keep holding on.
They just find a way to win. All we do is win, 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 win. That's what they do.
They just keep holding on, man.
They find a way to get it done.
Yeah.
And I think everybody keeps underestimating them. Everybody sees the jerseys, the homemade jerseys. Everybody sees the old school script ramblers and stuff on their gear, and just think they got lucky to make it here. It may be luck because they hit a couple last second shots, but you know what? It takes skill and talent to even be in those games.
Right.
To take those last second shots.
Right.
It takes smarts to get yourself in a position to take those last second shots and to position yourself in such a way that you can do that. So
I agree.
I mean, you can say all you want is luck, but there's a whole lot of skill involved.
So can they beat Michigan? Let's get down to brass tacks. Can they score enough? Can they score enough points to beat Michigan?
Yes, they can beat Michigan. I believe they can beat Michigan only because they beat everybody else. And why bet against them now? Do I think they'll beat Michigan? No. But did I think they'll beat anybody else they played so far? No. But I'm still going to go with Michigan. It's the name brand. I'm not taking brand X. I'm going to take the name brand. I'm taking Gucci over the Gucci with the GUH.
No doubt. Well, you know what? I think that Michigan's going to get it done. I think they're going to make the final. On the other end, I think Udoka Azubuike, the big man for Kansas, that's a matchup nightmare for Kansas. I mean, 7'2", 285 pounds.
Beast mode.
Yeah, he's a monster. So I agree with you. I think Kansas finds a way to get it done, even though I picked Michigan to win it all. I think Kansas looks the best right now, and I think they find a way to get it done. Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Kansas win it all.
Hey, there it is, Kansas taking it all. But hey, we'll find out because as the game is playing, we'll be here. So you can join us next week at the Loyola Pizza Pub.
Let's talk it
7
over.
8. Hey, we'll give you a pregame show before the game starts. So come out, hang out with us. And while you guys get a chance, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. Hey, if you guys disagree with anything we said, get in the comments, chat back with us, because, hey, we'll definitely clap back with you as well. And you know what? Let's end this segment. We got another segment coming up because there's some big news happening.
That's right.
In Louisville today. And I can't wait to share with you guys when we come back on the Main Event Sports Show.